feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Monday morning. It's May 19th. And coming up on today's show, it's a Western Conference Finals preview. To break it down, I'll be joined by Alex Speers, who is one of the hosts of the Athletics Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, Down to Dunk. And we're going to get into all things about this Wolves-Thunder matchup. But before we get started, I wanted to let you know that we will be doing a live show at Falling Knife Brewing Company next Sunday afternoon. That's May 25th. It'll be a 2:30 p.m. happy hour. We're going to be outside, 2:30 happy hour, 3:30 live show. It's supposed to be like 60s and sunny next Sunday. I don't know. That's a week ahead in the forecast, but it looks like it's going to be nice. It's been awesome out there for all the, they're bringing the TV truck. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can kind of see the setup for their watch parties for all of the games. Game 3 is Saturday. Game 4 is Monday. So we're going to do the show on Sunday afternoon in the middle of that. But game 1, game 2 for the Wolves Thunder, go watch at Falling Knife with a bunch of Wolves fans. Looks like a ton of people have been there for those games. But also join us for the live show on Sunday afternoon if you haven't had enough Wolves in your life. Again, TV truck going for the games, live show on Sunday. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. Wolves Thunder Western Conference Finals preview coming up next.
Hey, yeah.
All right, we are now joined by Alex Speers from the Athletics Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, Down to Dunk. Alex, Down to Dunk. Love the work you and Andrew do on that show. I've been listening since like the Dennis Schroeder days, Chris Paul. I love that. Mike Muscala, Minnesota, shout out. But I've been meaning to tell you this. I think the Saturday Slam and Jam was awesome this year. And I think there was like this void in a little bit of like the broader NBA podcast coverage, no Zach Lowe this year. I think that was everybody's kind of go-to. And just for me, honestly, like that became a go-to with you and Andrew just kind of covering the league. I love that. Thanks for coming on my show this morning. Excited to break this one down.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, Slam and Jam has been a blast. All credit to the No Dunks guys. I mean, going back to Basketball Jones and the starters, those are the reason why we do podcasts, those guys. So we just try to bring some of the same energy that they bring to the NBA podcasting space, just trying to keep it light and fun. So
it's great. It really is. But it's like good. It's like a good reminder. We get like a little hyper focused on our specific team, and you guys, I love your little thing at the beginning where you just are like, here's some crazy shit that happened in the league this week. I was listening to, I think it was after game 5 of Down to Dunk, and you said,
oh no.
Oh, I'm dreading that series. I hate the matchup with the Timberwolves. You know what? I don't even want to talk about it yet. End quote.
Yep, that sounds right.
So why?
You know what it is?
Yeah,
I'm still scarred from last season's games because in my head, like every Wolves Thunder game is like 91-87, and it was funny going back through this season's games and realizing like, oh, they were actually really high scoring games. But in my head, it is just like these disgusting slugfest defensive matchups. But that was really last season. And so I had to kind of like readjust as I started looking into this series and like, okay, maybe it won't be quite as ugly as I thought it was going to be. Because those games a year ago, I mean, those were miserable. I mean, they were fun, but they were miserable to watch.
Well, but I mean, the thing is, and we could just do this right now and talk about who was in those 4 games when these two teams played each other before. It wasn't like each team's normal identity. I mean, for the Wolves standpoint, it was Gobert was out, Randall was out, DiVincenzo were out for 3 of the 4 games, like that time when they were all packed in there. Chet was coming back. He didn't play in all the games. Like, I don't feel like I'm not sure at any way of like stylistically what happened in the regular season games is at all going to be a representation of what we see here. I think there's matchup things and this and that, but it could get kind of slugfesty again once you bring Gobert back in, once you bring Holmgren back in, I mean, Pretty different.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because I was going through those games last night, and yeah, as you mentioned, I think Gobert only played in one game. Randall played in one game. I actually looked it up. Chet has only played against Julius Randle one game in his entire career. Because I'm really interested to see how they decide to deal with Randall. But the one thing from all those games that I do think is, and this isn't like new, but this is like a blueprint to beat OKC, was in that the final game when Minnesota makes that crazy comeback in the fourth quarter. They went zone, they blitzed SGA, and OKC shot 21% from three in the fourth.
Mhm.
And when OKC has looked bad, that is usually the ingredients. Like that's the recipe for when OKC has looked just pathetic this season. It's usually against a zone defense. Although I remember Andrew telling me, like, yeah, I went on Spectrum and they actually like are fine against the zone. And that may be true over the course of the entire season. But I swear, like when they have looked the worst, it's been against a zone. And SGA, they load up on SGA, and then these role players just can't hit their shots. We've already seen it in these playoffs. I mean, OKC's shooting has been miserable. I think
Right.
they've shot below 31% in 5 of the 11 playoff games. So it's been really rough. So I do think that is kind of the recipe, and that was the one thing from those 4 games that kind of stood out to me.
It is. It's interesting. The Wolves stink against zone too. And it just seems to be like a lot of teams are saying that right now about their team and what they have, and what is working and what isn't working for them. I don't think the Wolves are going to run anywhere near as much zone as Denver did.
I was going to
Um,
ask you that because I didn't know how much zone they ran like during the
Not
regular
with
season.
Rudy.
Yeah.
So I think though when the Wolves run drop with Rudy, it can kind of function a little bit like a matchup zone,
Mhm.
which is a little bit more of what we saw Denver doing, which was, it was that shell sort of 2-3 zone concept. Their guys were basically within the 3-point line. The comeback you're talking about, it was still a 2-3 zone from the Wolves, but it was like Jaden and Nikhil were like up at half court. They're like, okay, as soon as Shea
Yeah.
crosses, like picking it up there. Those are very different, types of zone. I think they might do that at times, like when Rudy isn't out there, and we can talk a little bit later about how much we think Rudy's going to play in this series. So if Rudy's off the floor and you got Nas and Julius back as your front court guys, maybe you do see them throw that kind of like pressing zone. But I think the plan for the most part is going to be have Rudy and drop, and he does a pretty good job of handling. I mean, he's not going to just give Shea like 15 footers. He's going to pressure those. He's going to try and like not give him the pull up mid range shot there. But I do think that's what will feel the most like the Denver zone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to
We'll
me.
see what that looks like.
And I do think like by game 7, they finally started to figure out the zone a little bit. Although, as we talked about on our post game pod, like how much of that was just that Aaron Gordon like could not move because they were getting all these back cuts along the baseline, and how much of that was just like Aaron Gordon just can't run right now. And so I don't know how much of that was them solving the zone versus it was just it ended
I
up
think
being
Caruso's
a good matchup by the
great.
end.
Caruso was so good against the zone too. There's this one play yesterday where he had it above the break on the right side, and Chet's in the right corner, and Chet's wide open in the right corner, and all Caruso has to do is like literally pass it to Chet in the corner right there, and he can shoot this open three. You could like see Caruso processing it. Dort flashes to the middle of the zone, and Caruso's thinking hockey assist here. I pass it to Dort here in the middle. Chet dives, and it's a dunk, just going right through there. And so he's giving up an open corner three because he understands. I think they just got so comfortable with what that Denver zone was over the course of time, where they did go to the point of going from like good to great look there. And that's where I think the stuff started coming from, not just threes, because that's what I felt like got them in trouble. Chet can obviously make that shot, but what if Chet misses that 3 times in a row in open corner three? That's not like out of the realm of possibilities,
No,
so I think Caruso's a big
real.
thing there.
Yeah. Caruso's huge. Hartenstein has been good as a zone buster in the past because of his passing from the middle. So it's one of those things. Like again, they've been good against the zone in the regular season, but there's just been these moments where when they've looked their worst, it's usually against a zone. So, but that's interesting. Your point about that the Wolves maybe won't go to the zone as much
We'll see.
As Denver did. But yeah.
What else? What else makes the Wolves tricky for them?
Okay, so I came up with 3 things ranked by how scared I am. Okay, so this is number 1. This is my scariest one. I don't know if this will be the thing you think I'm going to say, but it is corner threes. It is corner threes because OKC allows a greater percentage of opponent shots from the corners than any other team in the league. Minnesota is top 5 in percentage of shots that are corner threes, and they do very well on them. They shoot 40%. In the Denver series, well, the stat that I do not feel like is being talked about enough is in games 4, 5, and 7. Now, this is cleaning the glass, so it won't line up exactly with NBA.com. Denver shot 6 of 46 from the corners. They shot 13%. Just like a massive gift to OKC in the midst of these games where they're like not shooting the ball well at all. But they are getting 15 corner threes per game that they are just missing. And I don't think that's going to happen again. We saw it not happen in the Dallas series last year. Like they did the same thing. They allowed corner threes, and all of a sudden PJ Washington got super hot, shot like over 40% in that series. And so I'm just worried because I think Minnesota has more shooters than they're just a better shooting team overall than Denver. Denver doesn't take as many threes either. And if they allow those corner threes, which is just kind of been their MO going back years now, like it's part of their defensive identity. They would rather pack the paint and hope that they can, make a strong closeout on the guy in the corner as opposed to hanging out there. If Minnesota shoots a lot of corner threes, I think they're going to probably make a decent number of corner threes. I really think that could put OKC in a tough spot if their shooting continues to be as bad as it has been in these playoffs. Like they survived some really poor shooting nights against Denver because Denver was shooting so poorly. Right. And I just think Minnesota's more talented. And if they're hitting their corner threes, it's going to put OKC in a spot where they have to be making their threes. I think it'll be harder to win those poor percentage games.
I mean, like you said, with the numbers, just looking at Denver's 3-point volume over the course of the season, or their corner 3-point volume, it kind of, tells this story. But like the Wolves are very much empowered to take those. And Denver less so. That it's kind of like, this is a decent look, but we'd rather kind of play through Jokic in the middle and find cutters and this and that. Like, I don't know if you remember from the Lakers series, the Wolves have had games where they've missed a ton of threes over the course of the game. But it's been every time afterwards, like Finch was like, no problem with these, they're wide open looks, taking them. We're going to take them. If the Wolves shoot 2 for 17 on corner threes in game 1, they're going to shoot 17 again in the next game, or they're going to at least be told to. And I think the Wolves got a little bit gun shy when they strung together like 2 or 3 like really bad shooting games. They got a little gun shy, but like from an ethos of who they are, that corner 3 is a huge part of it, as it needs to be against any time you got a main guy who's going to be getting loaded up on, whether it's with blitz in the pick and rolls or heavy gap help. It is just going to be open, provided the assumption that Oklahoma City is going to be really focused on Ant and taking away his best weapons. The best thing the Wolves can do is get to something else great, which is, maybe Rudy in the dunker spot off of that, or a corner 3. If Oklahoma City can take away those things, all right, now you pivot into, now Julius is trying to go at somebody, whatever. But the corner 3 is definitely maybe even like the primary release valve for this team out when Ant is being taken away. Give me your other 2.
Second one's more obvious. Just the number of defenders the Wolves have to throw at SGA and Dub. I mean, if you look at OKC's first, 2-round opponents, like Nikhil, McDaniels, Ant, like any one of those 3 would be the best option against SGA or Dub in either of those series. Like I would take them over
Jalen Clark might have been, who's like,
honestly, yes, Jalen Clark, add him in there too. Like anyone on Denver, anyone on Memphis. And despite that, like OKC managed to make Denver look like a decent offense or a decent defense for a lot of that series. Part of that was just the poor shooting again. But the jump up, like the level up that OKC is about to experience defensively, specifically SGA and Dub, I think is significant. And we're going to get to X factors later, but it makes me wonder if, like, off the bench, maybe Daignault will skew more to trying to get more offense on the court if those guys get bogged down.
He
I don't
didn't
know,
do
but
that
it
last
worried.
round though, man. It was weird. Like it felt
I
like
know.
go to Wiggins more, and
Yeah,
it
exactly.
wasn't. I feel like Daignault. I mean, you would know this better than me, but like his instinct is always to go defense, and
That's probably true. Yeah.
but I think it'd be a good idea, man. If they're gonna design this thing to make it so JDub or somebody else needs to be the
Right.
guy pressing the gaps, and
Yeah.
and JDub can do that if he's having another bad game. I mean, I was thinking of game 6, right, where Dub played really bad,
Right.
and I was like, all right, like if Wiggins is out here, like let's see, can he
Yeah.
go? And then he's out there for like 3 minutes, and they pulled him, and I'm like, why did
Right.
he play 8 minutes in the game? And it was because they wanted to play Jay Will for defense. They want to play Caruso more in the playoffs. They want to play Wallace more. Those guys are all great defenders, but like
Mhm.
not really like, okay, here comes Alex Caruso to like punch the gap or try and finish around the basket. Like I
Yeah.
do feel like they need that. And I think Daignault would do well to be like, look, Wiggins isn't a bad defender. He's not Dort, but like this isn't going to be terrible. We can still survive that and get more. That really stood out to me in the Denver series of how it really, really felt like Daignault was prioritizing defensive personnel the entire time.
And this is one area where the regular season matchups may make you feel differently because, like, SGA was really good this season against the Wolves, like
Mhm.
35, 7 and 7, 64% true shooting. Like, he was incredible against the Wolves. But again, I go back to last year's games and just seeing how the Wolves had been able to bog down that OKC offense. And I still think SGA can have a great series, but it's going to be such a jump up from what he has experienced in the first 2 rounds. Parts of which he did not look great, especially in that Memphis series. And then, game 1, I think, against Denver, he finally got it going. And by the end of the Denver series, he was awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this has just like been a slow ramp up for him to finally look like the MVP again. But I'm so worried about just all of those defenders compared to what they have had to face so far. I mean, it's kind of the flip side for the Wolves.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's when I start doing mine. I'm doing the same thing
Yeah,
about Ant
exactly.
and Randall. I mean, that's just what this series is these teams have crazy defensive personnel for the other teams, crazy talented offensive players. What's your third one?
Third one is offensive rebounds. And this is one I worry about partly because of the shooting. Like if they have poor shooting nights, is it going to be one and done down the court because Minnesota's pretty good offensive rebounding team. In the playoffs, I saw in cleaning the glass, they're second in offensive rebound percentage, only behind Houston. Now, again, part of that is who they've played in the first 2 rounds. I do think the whole rebounding issue with OKC is not as big as it was a year ago for obvious reasons, Hartenstein. But
Yeah.
even like this year, if you look from opening night to February 6th, that's the February 7th was the first debut of the double big lineup. They were 26th in defensive rebounding, which was very similar to what they were a year ago.
Yeah.
From February 7th until the end of the season, they were 10th in defensive rebounding. So that double big lineup obviously had a huge impact on their defensive rebounding. They were able to finish possessions a little better. Denver was third in total rebound percentage this season, and I thought OKC did pretty well. Now they still have these games where they just get dominated. Like game 1 was the classic one. They lost the rebounding battle by 20. Denver had 21 offensive rebounds. Like those games still happen to OKC because the wings and the guards for OKC just as a group are not good rebounders. Like they're
Right.
all kind of like J-Dub's not an amazing rebounder. Dort is not an amazing rebounder. They definitely give up size there. But at the same time, they out-rebounded Denver in 3 of those 7 games. So it hasn't been like such an issue as it was previously, but I still do worry about it with Minnesota just because there is so much size. There's going to be size unless they decide to go small at some point. There's always going to be size around the rim.
Would you say rebounding was a significantly better or significantly bigger issue against Memphis in round one?
Um, that
I
series
don't
was
remember
so
what the
weird.
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Zach Edey definitely had like a good rebounding series. Um, it's funny, it just like didn't come up. I don't know. I didn't think about it because it just
Such a
honestly didn't
blowout.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think
I
it's
wouldn't be.
relevant because Rudy's going to be doing what Edie was doing. I mean, like this is what Rudy has like no offensive role when teams just pack the paint, and they're just loading
Yeah.
up gap help, like because they don't even use him really as a screener because it doesn't matter. Like nothing's going to happen there. So Rudy's really just like, I mean, I've just been calling him like an offensive lineman. He's just like living around the dunker or whatever, and then he's just going to try and kind of push his way in there. I mean, he's really, I mean, for Oklahoma City fans who are listening to this, it's like gone are the days of like Rudy being this high volume lob threat. Not because he can't do it. Like the Wolves just don't know how to pass him the ball in that way.
Yeah.
It just has not been developed, whatever. So Rudy, the big like pivot for Rudy, I would say over the final like quarter of the season was he was like, all right, like I got to get nobody passes me the ball. I got to get some offense somehow. I'm just going to be an offensive rebounder guy. And he goes every time. And it's like, remember how Looney would be back for like Golden State in the playoffs, when they won in 22 or whatever. And it would just be every time he would just kind of commit an offensive foul, basically trying to go get an offensive rebound, but would often either get the offensive rebound or get called for the foul himself. Like that is Rudy's role here. And they're going to try and poke at that because if we are looking for weaknesses in the Oklahoma City defense, it would be defensive rebounding, even though it's a lot better than it was, a year ago.
Yeah, I think I misspoke when I mentioned this at first, but yeah, I was more concerned about Minnesota offensive rebounding,
Right?
not OKC offensive rebounding. I mean, I would love OKC to offensive rebound, please. They had like one really good one against Denver. I think they had 18 offensive rebounds, and that was one of the games they lost. But yeah, we don't get those games a lot in OKC, so that was exciting. But yeah, just figuring out Minnesota on the boards, because I don't know how much I should worry about the size or not. Like you've heard my three things. Like, what were you thinking would be like? Was there anything I didn't mention that you feel like is a clear advantage?
I mean, I think the question is Julius. Is Julius a big advantage in this or
Yeah,
not? And it's so weird. Do we go off of what we saw from the first 60 games of the season of Julius Randle and when those Oklahoma City games? I mean, he did play in the first game against the
yeah,
Thunder.
he did. Yeah,
And turnover, and they have him play point forward sometimes and bring it up. And the Thunder were like, all right, Kaysen, go pick him up.
yeah,
So that's why I've had this looming fear of Oklahoma City the whole time, because that game was so stark. It was like an emblem of like, ooh, this is a little bit problematic when they try to run the offense through Randall because they just have so many defenders that they could throw at him. But I mean, I can't tell you how different Julius is right now than he was on New Year's Eve when they played that game against them. I mean, this is a very, very different player. And that, I think that very much changes this equation where it could get to a point where Ant and Julius are both looking like problems for Oklahoma City too, to simultaneously contain them, if that makes sense.
yeah,
But I don't know. Like I can't be like, this is a for sure advantage, because I think it could go the other way too. And we're like 2 games into the series and we're like, and Julius had 9 turnovers in the first 2 games and was 10 of 27 from the field or something like that,
right.
But that's just this new X factor to the Wolves in general that, if they're going to go to the championship, they're going to win the championship. What we're going to be talking about is Julius Randle became this entirely new player that the Lakers had nothing for, that the Warriors, even with Draymond Green, had nothing for. And then the Thunder, he was effective against. That's hard for me to like wager on, or I wouldn't, I wouldn't confidently bet on it, but it's for sure within the realm of possibilities. Let me grab a quick break here, and then we can keep talking about that, and then I have the other side of the coin the Wolves' ways. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, and I was looking at, they got some numbers up there for the Wolves Thunder game 1. 3, I'll just do quick. Take a look at the whole board. There's a bunch of stuff up there. You know this matchup. You know these players. You can take a look, go off a field. But the 3 I did was Nickeil Alexander-Walker has a turnover in the game. Chet Holmgren, who I think will be more in that sort of lurking position again. I'm going to say he has more than 9 rebounds. And then Naz Reid's point total was only at 10.5. It was more like 12.5, 13.5. I was like, okay, I feel pretty confident that Naz is going to be in double digits there. So take a look at the Prize Picks board over there. Put together a daily fantasy lineup at prizepicks.com or on the Prize Picks app. If you don't have an account, you can use the promo code Dane, and they will credit your account with a $50 sign-up bonus when you place your first $5 lineup.
Can I say something about Naz?
You
Because
can.
he probably should have been his own point in terms of things I'm scared about. Because Naz Reid, I don't know if Wolves fans know this, but if you look at his splits over his career, his highest scoring average is against OKC. This year, in 4 games, 22.5, 11, and 3.3 assists per game, highest scoring average against any team. He has been such a Thunder killer. Like, he is up there with PJ Washington. Aaron Gordon is now on that list of these guys that just destroy the Thunder. And actually, now I'm thinking about it, those guys have a lot in common, like just big fours who can stretch the floor. Yeah, he is really terrifying. And I think later you're going to ask me, like, what lineups scare me. And I know this is biased because of that stupid game right before the All-Star break. Yeah. But the lineups where Naz is at center and they go real small ball with like McDaniels at 4, like that was some of the most terrifying Wolves defense I have seen over these last 2 years. And I don't know how much to chalk it up to just like, okay, second night of a back-to-back, the last game before the All-Star break. But what they did in that game looked so terrifying because it was like everything that makes me scared of the Wolves was amplified when that unit was on the court. And so I'm not expecting them to go to that a ton just because they have Randall and Gobert, but like that's truly what I'm scared of, that small ball lineup.
It is interesting to the Naz point, and I think what you're referencing, not even just from this, I think Naz started 3 of the 4 games, right? Because there's no 3 of the 4 games, there's no Randall or Gobert. So Naz started 3 of those games. I know in previous years, he just happened to like, there was other guys hurt. And I remember his like first big breakout game ever, maybe like 3-4 years ago. He started and had like 25 and actually took the game winning shot at the end and missed it. Do you remember that?
Remember that,
but these are all games where Naz started. And the thing with Naz is, and which is probably true of all players, is if you start him, there's just a greater likelihood that you're going to get like a more consistent, predictable performance from him. When he comes off the bench, it's like explosive or ineffective. And I just think, at least anecdotally in my mind, like half the games that he's played against the Thunder over the last 3 or 4 years, he started, and he obviously hasn't started half. That's not the average amount of games. He starts like 10 games a year for the Wolves. But the bigger point is like, what can you do to get Naz in a rhythm in this series, even if it is coming off of the bench? Because he does provide problems to Oklahoma City for whatever reason. I think part of it is he's just like, I think he doesn't think the Thunder are that good. You know what I'm saying? Like how some teams are just like, nah, like, or maybe irrationally so. But I just like get the sense with him where he has an elevated confidence against them. Maybe because he's done it before. Maybe because he's like bigger than a lot of the guys. Certainly when Hartenstein's not out there, he just has this like combination of a size and sort of speed advantage against a Chet and some of the other players like that. But for sure, an X factor in this series. I would just, for Thunder fans, I wouldn't bank on Naz. Would you say the line was 22, 11, and 3? Like, I don't think Naz is averaging 22.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better.
Cross that one off. All right. The ways that the Thunder are a tough matchup for the Wolves. This is a cliche 4-factor thing. I talked about it in the previous episode I did, but I want to talk to you about it. The turnover thing is obvious. from how that is the Thunder's superpower. I've been saying it's also the Wolves' weakness.
Mhm.
They played Golden State last round, and Golden State, after they got Jimmy, number 1 in the league in turnovers forced from the trade deadline on. Well, obviously Oklahoma City was number 1 in turnovers generated over the course of the entire season. So you have this, same thing, same issue. And the Wolves turned the ball over 16 times, 13 times, 21 times, 21 times, 21 times against Golden State in that previous series, which is a lot.
Yeah.
The difference, though, is that's 92 turnovers for the Wolves. Golden State turned it over in that series 86 times. And that's because if you look at Golden State, they're not just a high turnover generated team. They also turn over the ball a lot.
Yeah.
So the Wolves, you could come into this and be like, yeah, well, the Wolves turned it over a lot and they beat the Warriors handily. Well, part of that is because Golden State turned it over, and Oklahoma City's superpower is that they don't turn it over themselves. If the Wolves turn it over 92 times in this series, or what is that, 18 times a game, that's not going to be matched by the Thunder in this series. My question to you, about all of that, have you seen teams do anything like effectively, strategically to be like, hey, we know this team is gonna turn us over a lot? Have you seen like more conservative game plans or like anything that has worked to sort of neutralize that superpower for the Thunder? Do you know what do you get what I'm asking there?
I'm thinking of the teams that have been good. I mean, maybe just slowing it down, like slowing the game down, limiting the possessions. Because I feel like if you start trying to get into a track meet with OKC, you're just encouraging those kind of transition plays to happen. And I'm thinking of Dallas last year was really good at not turning the ball over. A lot of it is just guys who are good with the ball.
Right.
Teams that have excelled there. So yeah, I don't know. Other than just slowing down the game to just limit the number of possibilities of them stealing the ball, I don't know what else you could do.
I don't think there's like, and I wasn't expecting you to be like, oh yeah, X, Y, and Z. I actually asked Mike Conley the same thing. I'm gonna play that clip right now, and he said basically the same answer. You didn't play this clip here. This might be a stupid question, but like in football, right? If you're turning the ball over a lot, like maybe you're not going to pass it as much. You're going to run the ball. Like, are there ways in basketball to have maybe like a more conservative offensive game plan, knowing you're playing an opponent that generates a lot of turnovers?
It's a little tougher. Just try to get the ball in the hands of the people who take care of it the best. This is probably the football. You got a good quarterback who can do it. Without turning it over, you can throw it still. You can make the right reads. You have a running back that controls the tempo. You do that. A good offensive line, stuff like that. Like we have Julius in the post. We have his post up game is elite, and we can play through that and not have to worry about the pressure from the outside 3-point line and bring the ball up as much. And so there's different avenues, but we just have to overall as a team, when we push the tempo and we do get opportunities, we have to figure out for everybody to cut those down.
You mentioned Luka in the Dallas series there, right? As like the ball controller, and the ball controller for the Wolves is Edwards and Randall, and they are high turnover players. I think what you're saying, what Mike's saying there is, if our main guys like control the ball and protect it well and are intentional about that, like Oklahoma City's not going to turn them over a million times. I'm just not sure that's possible for Ant and Randall to do. And then Mike would be the guy who you would, put the ball in his hands and control, but they're not going to run the offense through Mike Conley,
Right.
I think it's just the answer is Ant and Julius need to be really intentional about it and just do a good job. They just need to be better than they were the whole season. And that's, I think, if you want to make the strong case for the Thunder to run through this team and it be over quickly, it's that you could say, I don't believe that Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards can do that. And you would have a pretty long track record of them not being able to do that against good defensive teams. I mean, they didn't against the Lakers, I just listed those off for you: 16, 13, 21, 21, 21 in the Warriors series. The Wolves turnover totals. Their highest turnover total in the Lakers series was 11 in a game. So it's not like they can't go through games without turning it over.
Yeah.
But we're talking about extremely different defenses between the Lakers and the Thunder, and how they're going to be able to guard them. I'm just not sure.
I do wonder, like, if you can limit the type of turnovers, because one thing I noticed in the Denver series, like some of these like strips are kind of inevitable with how handsy OKC is. But in that game 7, and I actually saw it a couple times during the series with Jokic, just like really bad passes that where it was thrown to no one, just straight out of bounds. And I assume that those turnovers were brought about just because of OKC's activity and Denver getting frazzled. But those are kind of like unforced errors. Like, you don't have to do that. Like, some of it's inevitable, but that is not inevitable. And so maybe if you can cut down on some of the dumber turnovers, and even if you're still at 15 turnovers, if you can prevent that from being 18 to 20, maybe that's just enough of a margin where the turnover isn't going to be as big of an issue. Denver was just throwing some wild passes at points in that series.
The Wolves do that all the time too, man.
Okay. All right. Well,
just like it's kind of like Denver too. It's like, I get what you're saying of like, don't do the wild passes, but some of that is like rhythmic too, where it's like swing. Nas gets out there and he's holding it for like a third of a second, and then he's swinging it to the other guy, and now the ball is fully rotated the perimeter in less than a second. And when it works, we're like, oh, best basketball ever. Like, are these the Spurs? But then when you sail one out of bounds, you're like, run the damn ball. Like it's I don't know. Basketball doesn't work the same way. Maybe this is the other one that I have as a concern for the Wolves, or why the Thunder present a tough matchup. It's just like the matchups in general, and I would focus on Dort guarding Ant. That's about as good as it gets. Ant has said so himself that Dort has been one of the toughest guys guarding him. And then I think they have a lot of different options for who they can put on Julius Randle, whether that be Dub. I don't know if it'll be Chet some. I think Caruso probably guards him. I'm curious how you think they line up so as to prioritize Ant and Julius in this series.
Yeah, I saw what you wrote on the thing you sent me, and I do think what you put makes sense. Like Hartenstein on Gobert is like an obvious matchup, but I would rather put Chet on Gobert because Chet is their rim defense. Like, he is an incredible rim defender. In the regular season, within 6 feet, opponent shot 45% against him across those 32 games, which is like an absurd number. But he's been like the anchor of that rim defense. And so asking him to guard someone like McDaniels, bringing him away from the basket more, or even if it was Randall, bringing him away from the basket more, I just worry that that's not utilizing Chet in the best way. Like, I would rather him be home when Ant is making those drives rather than Hartenstein. So I'm interested to see.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah.
I think I hear what you're saying if he's on McDaniels and he's stashed on him in the corner, but you're also implying there that he's actually going to guard McDaniels in the corner.
That's the other thing. Yeah, I was, as I was going through it, I was like, well, if you could get away with Chet on McDaniels because you're not going to guard him, then why not just put Hartenstein on McDaniels?
Sure.
Like, if they're going to do the PJ Washington thing and just be like, yeah, you can take as many shots as you want, and if you do great, and if not, like, we're just going to keep doing it. Like, why not just put Hartenstein on him, and then you could have both of those bigs like around the basket. Because I do like the idea of JDub starting on Randall, but I could also see putting Hartenstein on him in a similar thing. Like, if you want Julius Randle to shoot a ton of threes per game, like OKC would probably be okay with that, and then just have that big body waiting for him at the rim, because that's where that's why I don't want Chet on Randall initially, because I do think, like, if Randall's going to get going, it's going to be him just like bullying Chet to the rim, and I don't really want to see that. Although when I said that to Andrew, he was like, listen, if the Wolves want to make their entire offense out of like Julius Randle post ups, like, I'm kind of okay with that. in the grand scheme of things. But I don't know. I go back and forth on it. I think there's so many ways to mix and match those big matchups.
Yeah, that's the thing. Isn't like, what I sent you is matchups for the starters. I mean, the Wolves are going to have Naz Reid and DiVincenzo in there 6 minutes into the game, maybe even quicker than that. Caruso is going to be in there, and then is Caruso on? It changes the whole. This isn't just like this guy guards this guy sort of series, and so to that end, you can feel it out. You can try different things. I do. And I'm not sure I would have said this before, like the Warriors series, because my big thing when I was on with Randall was I was like, go ahead, go to work in isolation, go into the post in isolation, Julius, every time you have like a plus advantage, like a positive matchup advantage. You got Pajemski on you. Do not even think about passing. Like get into there, force, because the best thing Julius Randle does for this team is not score. It's draw a double team and kick out to wide open 3-point shooters. That is the number one thing. Now he's scoring at a much higher clip in this postseason. And I mean, dude, he was giving it to Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green in that series, which again, previously, if that hadn't have happened, I'd be like, okay, Hartenstein, like physicality, won't let him go through him. But what he did against Draymond or Trace Jackson Davis was he was just quicker than them. And I think like if it's Hartenstein on Randall, maybe it'll work from neutralize some of the physicality thing, but that does strike me as something that you could see them try, and then Julius just beats it with speed, because that's the biggest, like that's the change in Randall's game from when he returned from injury with 21 games left in the season. Has been a very different player. Is I feel like he got healthy, he got a little bit more slender, and he's just going not only going faster, like the decision quicker, but his burst to like his first step is a lot faster and more deliberate. And to that end, it's almost like you do want, I think the best type of guy to guard him is somebody with some strength, but also with some foot speed. And that's why I think JDub is just I think that's going to be when you're talking about one-on-one and you don't want to bring doubles. Yeah. I think JDub is going to be the best option for that one.
So maybe that is the answer, where they'll just keep the bigs home or close to the rim, let McDaniels shoot until he kills them, and then just see what Dub can do on Randall, knowing that you have those two bigs behind you.
Right. Jaden's been good, man. I mean, lots of teams, he's the guy that teams choose to do that too. And earlier on in his career, Thunder too, like had done that, and he hasn't been able to punish that. Oftentimes what happens, he'll take like 5 threes in the first quarter, and he's 1 of 5, and it really like disrupts his confidence. What's changed with McDaniels is he's not just like settling for that catch and shoot 3, even if he's left open in the corner. Like I'd say he gets his like Flintstones feet going in the corner, and he's ready to like catch it on the move and attack there. And that's really advantageous when a team tries to like hide a Darius Garland or a Trae Young on him or whatever, because now Jaden's just got to catch it, take that one dribble, and he can shoot over these bad defenders that teams are trying to hide on him. I like Chet on McDaniels because it's like, all right, you do want to attack me here. I am Chet Holmgren, and I'm 7 whatever, and I don't think you're going to be able to come and just get to 8 feet and take your shot over him. I think if Chet is on McDaniels, McDaniels actually has to take and hit those corner threes, which is, that's not the best part of his offensive game. That's not a reliable part. He's been a better 3-point shooter in the playoffs last season too. But Jaden's best offensive thing is he's 6'11", and anytime he's got somebody smaller on him, just being able to drive and literally shoot over the top of him. So I think that matchup is really important as well, because it's Chet, and like you said, he is their rim defense. But I think Jaden could break that too if he is hitting all those threes there.
Yeah, on the flip side, like that player for OKC is obviously Dort, except Dort doesn't really have like another part of his offensive game. Like he's a terrible finisher at the rim. You don't want to see Dort shooting mid-range shots, even though he will occasionally. And it's a similar thing, except for the fact if he goes 1 for 5 in the first quarter, like he's going to take another 5 threes the rest of the game. He will never stop shooting. And luckily they have guys now where they can mitigate that somewhat. Like you can just play Alex Caruso more. But we've seen how important he is defensively, especially one-on-one against someone like Ant. So it'll be an interesting Dort series. I mean, every first quarter for Thunder fans, you're just like waiting for the moon balls, and it's like, are they going to hit tonight, or is he going to start? Is he going to be airballing them? You just never know.
Another matchup thing. I think, the stock price on JDub right now is a little arrow down, right? People were frustrated about what he did in that series. I was good last night, or yesterday. I think he could be a problem for the Wolves in this series, and I would buy JDub stock right now in this series. From an offensive standpoint, you're going to get defense from him. Like, even though he was not good offensively against Denver, like defensively he was and is. That's just, you're getting that from him all the time. The one guy who really gave the Wolves problems last round against the Warriors, like literally the one, was Jonathan Kuminga.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, and I know Kuminga and Dub aren't great comparisons, but I would just lump this into like a larger archetype of like, the Wolves struggle against fours who like are physical and can take you off the bounce and score at the rim. They don't really have a guy to put on that type of player. Kuminga got whatever he wanted. Not comparing Kuminga or JDub to like Zion or Giannis, but like Zion and Giannis are like massive, massive issues for the Wolves. It's this like weird in-between zone of don't want to put Gobert on them, but don't have a four to be able to guard him. And Dub is smaller than all those guys I listed, but he is forceful, and I still do think he's from that archetype that often gives the Wolves. Julius Randle gave the Wolves tons of problems. He scored 57 on the Wolves a year ago. I mean, it was 2 years ago, but it's that type of player. And I just think like there's an opportunity for Dub to be an actual problem for the Wolves in terms of his offense. Where were you at on just kind of his overall offensive performance and what he could bring in this series?
Yeah, it really feels it is game to game right now with the Thunder fan base. Like after game 6, you go on Thunder Reddit, it's all like, okay, here's the package for Giannis. We're doing a headline with JDub. Here are the picks we're going to include. And then like after game 7, it's like, there he is. That's our guy. Like it just goes back and forth game to game. And it's understandable. Like he was probably their best player in round 1 against Memphis. And it kind of felt like, okay, so last year was just kind of like, hey, it's his first playoffs. But then you started to see those same kind of tendencies creep back in the Denver series, whether it was being like not aggressive enough, settling for shots, just you want him to be forceful. Like that is when he is at his best, when he is taking guys off the dribble, getting to the rim. And you finally started seeing that later in the series, but it's still something that you don't know if you can count on it. And so I'm going into this series hopeful that he's going to have a good series. There's reasons to think he might, as you pointed out. But I can't say I'm like super confident that game 1 he's going to come out scoring 25 a night. Like I would love that, but I can't guarantee it right now. Like he's not at that level. Like when I think about the guys I'm most confident in, it's like SGA, Caruso, Cason Wallace. Like those are the guys so far that have just proven to me that they are ready every single night. I pretty much know what I'm going to get. And then there's these other guys on the team where it does feel like game to game who's going to show up, who's not.
And at least they have a lot of guys that if Dub isn't playing well, theoretically somebody else can play well to, replace them. And the Wolves are that way too. If Julius is having a bad game, Naz Reid, you have there as well. Both of these teams have a depth to cover up for some of their even good players like Randall and Williams, their sort of volatilities to their game. Like there's just a volume of guys that I think OKC and Minnesota can play. Then that can be game to game, matchup to matchup, just go hot hand in ways too, or turn your offense towards the players who are playing best. I don't think it's like, it's okay. I think if Jalen Williams has like a bad game, I think it's okay if Julius Randle has a bad game. Now it can't be the majority of the games are bad games. The other thing I put in here that I wanted to ask you about was, could OKC's small ball or Minnesota's like big ball present serious issues, at times to the opponent in certain lineup combinations. Let's do OKC first. And I would count Chet at the 5 as small ball.
Yeah.
I would say, right, like just Hartenstein's not out there as.
Yeah.
I mean, they went for a lot yesterday with no Chet or Hartenstein out there. That was, I don't know if you can do that against the Wolves. There's just too many big guys. But how could that OKC small ball group give the Wolves problems?
I think in similar ways to the way that Wolves defense looked that game before the All-Star break, like OKC's defense in those setups just becomes even more frantic. There's just even more of these long wings on the court that are causing turnovers. And so those are the lineups I feel that can create like a snowball effect, where they're just turning over the other team on almost every trip down the court, and it just gets absurd, and then you have to call a timeout. I'm really interested to see how many single big lineups, or how much they go to the single big lineups in this series, because that was the story last year. Like, all the messaging from the team was, we believe Chet is a center, we believe our best lineups are with Chet as a center, and we had just kind of internalized that. And then they go out and give Hartenstein, $30 million each. We're like, okay, double big, let's go, new look. But that lineup is still there, and that lineup was incredible last year, even with Josh Giddey in the starting lineup. And so I do wonder if they start going back to that more, and maybe this is a series where you try it out more, because I think in the Denver series, like, you didn't, at least initially, like, you didn't really want it to just be Chet alone against Jokic, because Jokic is just so big. But yeah, maybe in this series is one where you can not just get away with it, but it can become like a big part of an advantage for you.
Yeah, this taps into the weird narrative-y stuff with Gobert, right? Where it's, people be like, oh, they should play small to put Gobert in space and, attack him and do that. Well, that would be a bad idea. It's if Gobert's out there and they're small and, Chet's at the 5 and Gobert's guarding like Dort, Dort's not going to be able to like cook Rudy off the dribble,
Right.
They're not going to put Rudy on somebody who's going to, and most Rudy's really good in isolation, actually. Like, he'll probably hold up fine in an isolation, switched on to even like JDub or, some of their better guys that way. But what the real negative externality of that is to the Wolves playing against small ball is it's now a completely perimeter oriented setup. So Rudy is just guarding on the perimeter. Again, not an issue that he can do that, but he's not at the rim anymore. And that's why you see the Wolves take Rudy out against small lineups a lot of the time, because they're like, well, Rudy's basically just a station defender here right now, and he can do that, and that's cool. But like, Nas can guard Dort as well, right? Like on the perimeter. So they go to Nas because Nas is then going to give them more offensively against that small ball group. So I think there's like, I think if OKC goes small, as the Lakers did, as the Warriors did, you'll see Rudy's minute totals more like at 26 rather than 36, because they'll go away from that. But it won't be because Rudy can't guard that. It will be because he's less impactful defensively against that look, simply because he's not defending the rim, because he has to guard on the perimeter, and because he can't, like, he's not going to be able to do it. If Dort's guarding him, Rudy is not going to be able to score on Dort. Naz Reid will be able to score on Dort.
Would they ever just let Dort shoot? Like, just not worry about Dort?
See, so that's why I think it would start. I think they would start, because Rudy, like, I mean, this has happened where even when they've told Rudy to like stay out there, Rudy is constantly fighting his like internal desire to be at the rim to bring help.
Right.
So he'll be able to shoot him. And if Dort, as Dort has done many times, like the moon ball goes in, and if they do that look and Dort hits 2 or 3 threes in that stretch right there, well, then they got to go, Rudy, you got to go guard him. You got to be out on the perimeter to guard him. And then I think at that point they go, never mind, just you're off. Wait until Hartenstein gets back in. Then we'll bring you back in there. We'll let Nas and Julius be the front court in that way. Yes, that will be a risk that they can take against Dort. I'm just saying they don't need to even take that risk if they don't want to, because they can just play Nas.
True, true, true. Yeah, yeah. I would definitely say though, like especially on the road in Minnesota, like I have no confidence in this team's shooting right now. Like you could leave a lot of them open. I mean, Chet
Yeah.
was getting left wide open. Dort's getting left wide open. Hartenstein obviously isn't taking them. I think he was 0 of 17 this season. Shout out to him. So I do think if they want to start that way by just ignoring guys, they'll have the opportunity. There's some
What
options for
about
them.
what about the other side of it? Minnesota's gonna play big. I mean, I know you mentioned that smaller ball look. I just don't think we. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
you see that if Rudy or Julius get in foul trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're like, hey, that worked really well during the regular season. We're going to go to it. That would just be. This team is not like a game plan matchup specific thing. They start their same guys. They stick with their
Right.
same rotation, and they kind of play with it over the course of the game. They're going to start Rudy. They're going to play big. They're going to try to impose that. And I think the difference with the Wolves going big versus OKC going small is OKC going small is an adjustment in that it's taking your starting center off the floor. Wolves big ball is just they're mean, like that's just
Yeah.
how they play at all times. So you could make the argument that the Wolves are more confident playing big or have more experience playing big than the Thunder do playing small. Which ways do you think that size could impact them?
I mean, obviously, you worry about the rebounding. I don't think the Thunder would ever try to match them, though. Like to go big on their own. Like I really wonder if we see a ton of J Will in this series. I know he played like a key role in that Denver series where you could throw him in, put him on Jokic for 10 minutes, but I don't think they would try to match Minnesota size by like relying on him a ton. I I really think it comes down to the shooting. Like if Randall and Nas are hitting their threes, and that just becomes an absolutely terrifying lineup for OKC. And if they're not, like OKC is just going to pack the paint, and I'm not like super worried about it. But
Julius
I
is
have a
shooting
feel,
it right now, man. Julius is like 40% for like a couple months right now. That's a
yeah,
huge difference.
but he hasn't been like amazing in the playoffs because
He
I was
might have
going
had,
back over his game logs. I
he
know he
might
had
have
like
had
a
like a
4 for 8
cold
game.
stretch or something like that. It's been I think it's high 30s for the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, he's clearly the biggest thing with Julius is he confident and looking to take it? He's
yeah,
one of those guys where it's like, oh, I missed the last three, and then he starts dribbling it on the side, and maybe then
right,
tries to
right.
drive into a crowd. He's shooting them. And it's like the Dort thing. When Dort is feeling it, he's like, let's go. Every single time I can, I'm confidently stepping into it and taking it. Like Julius says, I guess I don't know exactly what the numbers say, but I would say I feel substantially better about Julius Randle's 3-point shooting right now than I would have definitely on that New Year's Eve game, the one that he played
Oh,
against the Thunder previously.
that's super interesting to me because when I was originally like going through the matchups, before I even thought about like, oh, maybe they should just leave McDaniels, I was thinking like, would they leave Randall at the 3-point line just to give yourself a little bit of a cushion if he's going to drive at you, and just let him take those threes and see if he can kill you or not.
Right. I mean,
but
I would try if you see him getting in his head, and which he's a body language, like what he's feeling by looking at him.
yeah,
Then but if he's playing confidently, I wouldn't, because then that becomes the issue of, all right, he's hit a couple. Now they're closing out harder against him, and that's what he wants. He's like, okay, now it's
yeah,
pump and go. And now the defense is multiple help defenders are coming, and he's basically checked off 3 defenders by that point. He blew by the first guy, and now the help has come. And now it's, which again, like I said, great passer. He can whip that with his left hand to the opposite side. He can find the corner. They're like the shooting when it's there opens up the playmaking even more for Julius. But yeah, I'm probably making it sound like Julius Randle's 3-point shooting is a little bit more bankable than it is. It's still Julius Randle shooting threes there. All right, let's do our last thing. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I do think like targeting Randall as a source of turnovers is like hugely important for the Thunder. Like they have to aggressively go after him because I think that is their potential best source. I mean, obviously you're going to get some turnovers from Ant, but I really think they could mess with Randall in that way if they do start throwing, like having someone guarding him, but then having, as we saw with Jokic, like just swarming him anytime he gets close to the basket and swiping from every angle.
Okay, the last thing I put for you was like, let's each do like out there X factor, not something obvious like turnovers or rebounds or whatever. Maybe it could be a specific player. I didn't give you great direction on this, but what did you do for a quote unquote out there X factor in this?
Well, I kind of hinted at it earlier, but it's Aaron Wiggins for me because Aaron Wiggins post All-Star break, 15 points per game. Like by the time we got to the end of the regular season, Thunder fans were thinking like, okay, this is our sixth man in terms of offense. Like if you need a spark off the bench, Daigneault's going to be going to Wiggins. And game one against Memphis, it was true. He was like 8 of 14, scored 21 points. We're like, here we go. This is playoff Wiggins. And then he just kind of disappeared. Like he just hasn't really been used. And he's been fine when he's been on the court, but he really just hasn't gotten the run that he got in the regular season. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it felt like in the Denver series, they were more willing to go to, or they wanted to go to J. Will for those like kind of extra minutes off the bench. And I just wonder in this series with the Timberwolves defense, will Daigneault finally skew towards offense and wanting to play Wiggins more just to give them another outlet? Because
I mean, why not, dude? Why wouldn't they? Why would you play Jalen Williams, J. Will in this series? I don't get it. What would be to guard Randall? I mean, do you think J. Will would do a better job against Randall than Hartenstein would, than JDub would? Like, I get it. To me, what it seemed like was happening was they're like, hey, we want J. Will to play against Denver because we want him to guard Jokic for 15 minutes a night. And then that was 15 minutes of bench time that Aaron Wiggins just couldn't get. I mean, honestly, I'm going to be like, if J. Will's out there, I'm going to be like, all right, I think this is just good for the Wolves. Maybe they rebound a little bit better. I mean, I'm not saying I don't like J. Will. I just don't, he seems matchup specific to me. And I wouldn't really get the logic of the matchup specifics in this specific series.
Yeah. And to his credit, I mean, after that Dallas series last year, I really felt like he is the reason we lost because they were really good in the Chet minutes. They got destroyed when Chet was off the court and it was J. Will. He has gotten so much better this season. He's become such a more reliable shooter that I don't feel that like pang of like, oh my gosh, Mark, why are you putting him in right now in the way that I used to? But yeah, I agree. Like in this upcoming series, I just think it makes more sense to give Wiggins a little bit more run and see if you can get that kind of third scoring option off the bench that you need. Like especially if JDub's going to be kind of like game to game, if the Wolves start hitting their threes, like you're going to need more offense. And I think Wiggins is the most obvious source of that. Now you could also put in Isaiah Joe, who I love, but he did not look like he could play in that Denver series at all. His shot's been a little off. I just think Wiggins is like the more obvious one because he has more size. He's going to be able to hold up a little bit better defensively. He's not like an amazing defender, but that scoring that he had post All-Star break, like it was just huge for this team because it really felt like it was coming out of nowhere. I wasn't thinking about Wiggins in that way when we were coming up with trade ideas at the trade deadline. But post All-Star break, it's like, oh my gosh, he's on this amazing deal and he's giving you 15 a night off the bench. Like this is the perfect role player. And then we just don't really see him in the playoffs. So maybe this will be the series when we have his resurgence.
It is weird for him and Joe of like, it doesn't feel like they're playing enough minutes to get into a rhythm. And I would say, and I like both those players, but there might be a case to be like, pick one of the two, Mark,
Yeah.
And even if it's Joe and just be like, all right, because I know you said he hasn't been shooting that well, but like, I don't like that when it's a player that we know is a good shooter. I know Isaiah Joe is a good shooter, which actually brings me to mind. Like I think Dante DiVincenzo could like lead this series in 3-pointers made.
Yeah.
And that's out there, not because Dante's not just like Joe, not because Dante's a bad 3-point shooter. He's just been shooting it terribly. His offense has been really bad. But both of the first 2 rounds. So that's what makes this out there. But it would not be out there at all if you and I were previewing a late season, regular season matchup
yeah,
between
absolutely.
the Thunder and the Wolves. I'd be like, I don't know, man. Like DiVincenzo is gonna, like, you can't give him any space if you're trying to help on Ant. Like, I think that's just like the biggest thing in general against these teams that are going to play a condensed defensive shell against Ant and have that gap help there is like, you got to keep Dante one pass away. And it can be 28 feet away, but like Ant's trying to go right. Okay, Dante's in the right slot, you know, and he's one pass away. Or Nas is in, you know, the left slot, one pass away. That's like, and it bothers me, honestly, that the Wolves are not like super intentional about that. And it'll sometimes be like McDaniels is one pass away above the break. And it's like, we could have really easily just interchanged this and had Nas, who's in the corner, and Jaden switch. So Nas is one pass away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just think Dante is such a release valve there because it doesn't matter if it's 28 feet. Like, just keep him there. And if they want to load up on Ant trust it, which he does with Dante, and he would still, even though Dante's been shooting it poorly in the playoffs. I just think there's like a world where he starts rolling from 3, given the way that they're guarding Ant, that inspires confidence in him. And now you start getting like the whole Dante DiVincenzo experience, which is what we all saw him do in New York last year against the Knicks. I think he's been the most inconsistent player. I don't know. Nikhil's been very up and down for the Wolves as well. But, you know, there's been this whole Julius Randle like renaissance and the trade's great and all that. When that trade went down and when I was asking around, they were like, they traded for Dante DiVincenzo. For these exact reasons. So I don't know. I mean, Dante's he's a confidence guy, as you know, most shooters, I think, like Joe is as well. But just like Isaiah Joe, it's so within the realm of possibilities that DiVincenzo has like a 6 made threes game if he plays 25 plus minutes. So he would be mine there.
And they have so many of those guys too. I mean, like I'm expecting a huge Naz Reid game. I'm expecting a huge DiVincenzo game, like at some point, just because that's so much more believable than like last series. Like, is Westbrook really going to kill us? Like, is Julian Strawther? And then eventually Julian Strawther did have the Julian Strawther game, but like Peyton Watson, like all these guys, like, yeah, they could have one of those games, but I'm not really expecting it. In this series, like like the Wolves bench is legit, and I'm expecting those guys to each have like their own amazing game in this series. I'm so happy we've gotten to this point because I was telling Andrew how scared I was of the Wolves going back to, I mean, like 2 weeks left in the regular season, it was looking like this could be the Thunder's first round matchup. And I was telling him like, that is the worst case scenario. I do not want to play this Wolves team in round 1. I'm terrified of them because forget their record. Like if you look at the underlying numbers, like there's a good team here. There's a very good team here that I am scared of. And so I'm glad we avoided the first round matchup because one thing I think Thunder fans have had to come to realize over this playoff run is that 68 wins, best point differential of all time, not a shortcut to playoff experience. Like we have had to take some lumps and we're, you know, that last series against Denver, maybe it felt this way for Minnesota fans last year in that series against Denver, where it was just like, we needed a series like that. We needed to go through a series like that to feel like we would have a chance to do something. If they had lost that series, I mean, it would have been catastrophic for so many reasons, like the MVP debate, you know, just this like entire season wasted. But I'm glad it played out the way it did because I feel like they needed that kind of series. And if I was going to favor the Wolves, which I would say, like as of yesterday, I might have picked the Wolves in 6. Part of it would have been because of that playoff experience. Like I still can't say that I'm like confident in this Thunder team, that the team I saw in the regular season is going to show up in this series. I think I will pick the Thunder, but it's going to be in 7 because between the experience issues that we've seen, I mean, we've seen some weird coaching decisions as well, and the shooting issues. Like I'm just not confident that this team is going to roll over anyone at this point. I think if they win, it is going to be a long series.
I'm with that. as well. And to the playoff experience point, people started saying that last year of like, oh, this Wolves team has like playoff experience. And I was like, I don't know, man, just being around them, you could tell it was still new and there were still things that they were feeling. It really like the page flipped for me being in the locker room after the clinching game in game 5 against Golden State. And it was just like business as usual. It was like going in there after a win in February, whatever. And they don't seem young like they did before. This doesn't seem new. This doesn't seem like a pat on the back. This team, if they lose to the Thunder in this series, will feel failure. And I mean, obviously to some extent they felt failure against Dallas, but part of that was how much Dallas just ran through them, you know?
Yeah.
It is there is a difference in some of that experience. And I think it is that it's feel, it's expectation. And weirdly, it does feel like the Wolves have a little bit of a leg up there on the Thunder, even though both of those teams have played like similar amounts of series. It's the Wolves just had their series against Denver last year, and I think learned so much, and they won that series just like they did. But then, you know, came into the conference finals, same thing, you know, 1 day rest and went into it, and it was basically over before it started. As with young players, I say this with Ant like all the time, of all elements of basketball. Like, he's the kid who you like tell him the stove is hot, but he has to touch the stove and burn his hand, you know, to be like, okay, yeah, you know, it is hot. Like, I do think Ant understands the stove is hot now, and that makes a real difference, I feel like, culturally, of just feeling like they've been there before and that they can do that. I think Julius similarly feels like a guy who understands the moment. Like, this doesn't seem new. I know it is new to him, but it's different than Cat, where there was a little bit more of the chaos that comes with Cat. It was new for Cat. It was his first good playoff series. And I guess you could say that about Julius. I'm just saying, from a subjectively being around them and haven't been around them last year and in the previous playoffs, this is a more like matured team collectively that I think gives me a lot more confidence of them against the Thunder, again, than I would have even said a week ago, before that page really turned in my mind. So I'm in the same boat. Long series. I think it would be disrespectful to the Thunder to pick the Wolves. I did a show with KOC yesterday, and I said, you know, Thunder in 6. I'm not a big like pick it in the amount of games. I'm more of like a percent chance to win the series, because it doesn't really make sense that the Thunder would win in 6, right? Because that's a home game for the Wolves. Right. Long series, but like a series that the Thunder should be comfortably favored in, but like that the Wolves have a 35% chance of winning. I think that's like the fair, leaving open the possibilities that the Thunder could just take care of them, but also the Wolves could present issues here for them, and there's absolutely a chance, a real chance, that the Wolves are moving on to the finals as well. But I'm with you. I think the Thunder should be not scared, but I don't feel like they should be like, we're moving on to the finals for sure. They gotta take care of business here.
Yeah, honestly, I was going to say 60-40. Just and maybe that's just bias, because the Wolves, based on their first two opponents, like, they've just looked so much better. You know, like if the Thunder had gotten to play the Warriors without Steph, maybe I would just be feeling amazing, being like, oh yeah, this is like 90-10, Thunder are going to roll them. But coming out of that Nuggets series, I'm proud of them. They had some awesome finishes to the game, but I'm still a little on edge, because I just am waiting for them to like put it all together over consecutive games the way we saw in the regular season. And part of that is when you win 68 games, you don't lose a lot of games. So like losing 3 games in 2 weeks to Denver, that was like life-changing for Thunder fans. Like, we went through it because we just weren't used to seeing this team lose a lot. And so maybe that's why I'm underrating OKC a little bit, but yeah, for me, it's like a 60-40 matchup. I very much respect the Wolves, and so glad we are playing them now and not in the first round.
Vegas has, if you do like the implied odds of the money line, they say 77%. Okay, so
I
it's
know. I
minus
saw that. Yeah, I
330.
saw it was like
That
minus
seems high.
375. That's too
Oh,
much.
375. Yeah, so that's like 80. Yeah, over 8, right? I mean, yeah, it's, I don't know. Again, they should be favored. They probably, more likely than not, I think you simulate this out 100 times. Yes, like the Thunder win it. But there's, again, I go back to, and I think we're going to know this early, of just the impact of what the ball pressure of Oklahoma City looks like and feels like. Julius Randle's 2 bad games of the playoffs were game 1 against the Lakers and game 1 against the Warriors. Bunch of turnovers in both of those games. If the Wolves look relatively comfortable against the Thunder's defense in game 1, okay, I'm moving it back to like, even if they lose that, move it back to even. But if that pressure has a real impact on both Edwards and Randle, I mean, that it is kind of a team that is designed to give the Wolves problems, because they're going to give the Wolves 2 main offensive guys problems. Jaden's not going to have easy guys to score against. I don't think Rudy's going to have some gigantic size advantage to punish them. Yeah, the Wolves bench is good, but I think the Thunders don't have a bad bench either. Like the Wolves are going to need to stack up a lot of different things. I think what I said to Kevin yesterday, I was like, I don't really know what my prediction is, but if you give me the first game or even the first 2 games, I think we'll have a much better idea of what this looks like. I'm sorry I kept you way longer than I said I would, but this was really fun. You want to just plug where? I mean, I'm sure Wolves fans are going to be trying to listen to a bunch of Thunder stuff. I mean, recommendations from obviously the stuff that you guys do, but just even anybody else you want to plug from the OKC.
Oh yeah. So we do Down to Dunk. I do the Wednesday show, so which means I'll be doing the game 1 post game. So hopefully that will be fun. We've gotten to avoid any like post game pods where it was a loss, so that's been nice. I tend to be very downer when they lose, so Wolves fans will want to turn in if they lose game 1. And then we do Saturday Slam and Jam. So I'm sure we haven't done like a Wolves. We try to do the teams that are like about to get knocked out, and now we're finally starting to do more of the teams that are moving on. We focused on the Pacers last week, so we might have a Wolves week coming up soon. So that's on Saturday mornings on the Athletic NBA show feed.
Love it, man. It's really I've been a listener for a long time. Like one of my buddies is a big OKC fan, and it's kind of funny. Like once you, or for me, my experience is I grew up in Minnesota and like was a Wolves fan, but once you start like doing it for a job and you're doing it like every single day, it kind of some of the, I don't know, just the emotional tie you have to a team just like goes away. And I like it better that way. But what's been fun for me is like, I do still like that, like having that one team that you're following all the time. And honestly, like the Thunder have been that team for me for like, what was the Chris Paul year? Like I loved that team.
Yeah.
And really started listening to you guys back then. I really think you do some of the best team specific pod work. And it's just, I think for both, I know you're a big Wolves guy too. Like, I think both of us are excited to see the teams that we cover play in this series, but I'm also really excited to see the Thunder play and like see what they're going to be able to do in their pursuit of a championship, as I've been tracking this for years and years. And I think you're the same way with the Wolves. So I'm sure,
well, also,
yeah, it's going to be toxic between the fan bases, but
I was going to say,
I
like
both teams.
It is very toxic between the fan bases, but I think we should take a step back and recognize that like this is the future of the West. Like,
yeah, dude.
This is the rivalry. You know, like we got rid of the Lakers. Like, well, I know they're going to come back because they have Luka now, but temporarily. Like the fact that Denver's been knocked off. Like this is the future of the West. Minnesota, OKC. So I'm excited for it. I know it's going to get toxic, but like, these are the kind of matchups you want, like these two teams on the rise, finally getting to battle it out on the highest stage. Like that is awesome to me. So I'm going to enjoy.
I love it, dude. I love it. I can't wait. I can't wait for Tuesday. Heading out to OKC tomorrow. And this is going to be. You're just staying in Portland?
Yeah, I told Andrew I might come back if they make it to the finals, but not before.
Not for conference finals. All right. Well, this is really fun, dude. Thank you for taking the time, make this happen on Monday morning. Again, you guys can you can follow Down to Dunk and everything that Alex and Andrew do over there, along with the Athletics Slam and Jam on Saturday mornings. Two of my favorite podcasts. Appreciate you doing it, man. On the show for listeners, coming up, we will do a post game pod right after Game 1 from Paycom Center in Oklahoma City. Like Andrew said, or Alex said too, you can listen to their post game reaction pod as well. That I'm sure that'll maybe be up before ours will. So be listening to them, get the Thunder perspective there, and we'll be talking about this series as long as it goes. Until then, he's Alex. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.